On the one-year anniversary of the killing of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, another man is critically wounded by police. Uganda's gay community hold a pride march at a secret location. And sights and sounds of Africa fill the air in a Washington, D.C. suburb. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Lenore Moudou. This is Africa 54. Vincent Makori is off today. We begin our broadcast in Ferguson, Missouri, the U.S. city that was the scene of so much turmoil last summer when an unarmed black teenager was shot and killed by a white police officer. Now, 1 year later, police say a man is in critical condition Monday after being shot by police in an exchange of gunfire on the sidelines of what had been a day of peaceful marches in Ferguson to mark the 1 year anniversary of the killing of Michael Brown. Esther Gitui-Ewart reports.
St. Louis County Police Chief John Belmer said plainclothes detectives had been monitoring a man they feared was armed, who then became involved in an exchange of 40 or 50 shots between two groups of people. He said that individual then crossed the street and approached the police officers.
The suspect engages them with gunfire almost right at the grill of the car. Strike the hood. I don't know if you've seen pictures of it yet. 3 or 4 times. Strike the windshield, I think 4 or 5 times. The plainclothes detectives return fire from the inside of the van, but they don't know if they hit him or not. They don't really know.
Belmer told the news conference that the outbreak of violence was an impediment to positive change, stressing the shooting did not involve those demonstrating.
There is a small group of people out there that are intent on making sure that we don't have peace that prevails. I don't know how else to say that. But that's just the bottom line on this.
Earlier Sunday, the situation was peaceful as marches began at the site where Brown was shot by Ferguson officer Darren Wilson on August 9, 2014, during a street confrontation. The demonstrations that followed Brown's killing threw the St. Louis suburb into the national spotlight and sparked calls for better treatment of minorities by police. Brown's father, Michael Brown Sr., asked protesters to observe 4.5 minutes of silence to represent the roughly 4.5 hours his son's body lay in the street after he was killed.
Give all my love to my family, my friends, my people, my new friends, my world. Yes. Y'all my world. Yes, that's right. Y'all made this happen for us. That's right. The one for y'all. That's right. This will be swept up under the carpet too. So I just want to give my love out to y'all, man. Thank y'all.
The observance was followed by a silent march aimed at remembering those who have died at the hands of police. Brown said his family is still grieving, but he believes his son's legacy can be seen in the increased awareness of police shootings. A state grand jury cleared Wilson of Brown's death last November, but an investigation by the U.S. Department of Justice found that blacks were unfairly targeted by the majority white police force in the city. Esther Gitui-Ewart, VOA News, Washington.
Now to West Africa. Mali was hit by several violent attacks over the weekend. A Malian army spokesman says a gunman killed 10 civilians in an attack Saturday on the village of Gaberi in northern Mali, just a day after Islamist gunmen raided the Byblos Hotel in Sévaré, 600 kilometers northeast of the capital, Bamako. At least 12 people were killed in the hotel attack, including a United Nations staffer. Gillian Kitchener of Reuters has more on the hotel siege.
This is what's left after a nearly 24-hour siege of a hotel in central Mali by suspected Islamist gunmen. Authorities say at least 12 people were killed, including hostages, soldiers, and 4 gunmen. The terror finally came to an end before dawn on Saturday, after security forces stormed the building and released some of the United Nations workers who had been trapped inside. The day before, Malian forces used heavy weapons like rocket-propelled grenades in a failed attempt to dislodge the gunmen. The attack on this, now quiet but bloody scene, was the latest in what appears to be a growing Islamist campaign against Malian soldiers and UN personnel.
Now, just days before the attack, a Malian Islamist militant under an international arrest warrant was freed from detention in Mauritania, according to a group investigating crimes by Islamist insurgents during their occupation of northern Mali. The Nigerian military says it has made 6 arrests after 4 soldiers and a policeman were killed in an attack by suspected pirates in the oil-rich Niger Delta on Friday. The army says its security forces recovered a cache of arms and ammunition in the raid on the gunmen's camp. Gunmen in speedboats targeted the military checkpoint in southern Bayelsa state on Friday. The attackers are also suspected of having carried out another raid on a community in neighboring River State. The Niger Delta is often marred by oil theft, piracy, and kidnappings for ransom. The past year has brought numerous challenges for the European Union, from a wave of immigrants from the Middle East and North Africa to the Greek debt crisis. Now another challenge is looming on the horizon, a proposed British referendum on leaving the EU. VOA's Helena Georgievich reports on the prospects of a British exit and its impact on the transatlantic partnership.
The promise of a referendum on the European Union was a key part of British Prime Minister David Cameron's election campaign, one he will have to deliver by 2017. In a recent interview with the BBC, US President Barack Obama was clear.
Having the United Kingdom in the European Union gives us much greater confidence about the strength of the transatlantic union.
Nigel Farage, leader of the right-wing United Kingdom Independence Party, says he's tired of hearing President Obama say that Britain should stay in the European Union and Greece in the Eurozone. Farage spoke to VOA while visiting Washington to seek support.
And my message to America is this: if Britain votes yes in this referendum and follows the State Department's advice, we will become ever more enmeshed in a European foreign policy, and our ability to be your best ally will be diminished. If we vote no in this referendum and we become an independent country again, we'll be fit, capable and able to be a friend of yours.
But experts in European affairs say the prevalent opinion in Washington is that Britain is a more effective US partner if it stays in the European Union.
To me, Britain has so much more influence if it helps to guide the EU. Britain was a major player in the determination of EU foreign and security policy. It has backed off that role under the Cameron government, which is unfortunate, I think. I think it's much better for Britain to be in the EU and leading.
Yet the number of so-called Eurosceptics in Britain is growing. Farage's UKIP won almost 4 million votes in the last parliamentary elections. His colleague, Roger Helmer, a member of the European Parliament, says the Greek economic crisis has shown the union of different cultures and economies simply is not working.
We see Greece being turned into a third world country, and some people blame the Greeks, some people blame the Germans. The blame should go to the people who introduced the single currency.
Adriano Bossoni, a Europe analyst at the geopolitical intelligence firm Stratfor, says London has a strategic interest in remaining involved in continental affairs. He spoke to VOA via Skype.
Regardless of how people vote in the referendum, there is a basic interest in remaining linked to the European Union. It could be through full membership, or it could be through some kind of agreement that allows Britain to remain involved in the free trade area.
Mr. Cameron has promised an in or out referendum by 2017, and it could be held in October of next year. Helena Georgievich, VOA News, Washington.
Illegal immigration is a major issue in the U.S. presidential race. Caught in the middle of the debate are minors who have crossed the border illegally, sent by their parents in the mistaken belief they will automatically be allowed to stay in the United States. VOA's Brian Allen reports.
Carlos left El Salvador for the United States because of extortion threats by criminals against his parents. He is lucky because his uncle welcomed him to his house in Maryland and is also paying for a lawyer to help Carlos stay in the United States. Meanwhile, Carlos is attending school where he spoke to VOA about his journey.
It's hard because you get to places you don't know, people you don't know. You go days without eating. You're in very bad places.
After crossing the U.S.-Mexico border, he was detained by immigration officials.
I spent about 10 days in one of those immigration places known as refrigerators, which is a very cold room, and you don't have a sweater. You have nothing.
Homeland Security officials estimate some 68,000 unaccompanied minors crossed the border in 2014. Many of them reported being victims of sexual harassment, physical violence, and threats along the way. But crossing the border is not the only challenge. Getting documentation to stay in the country is also difficult, say social workers.
At some point, they'll be in front of a judge, and families do not have the funds or the knowledge of where to find these services.
One option is to get asylum status, but proving a reasonable fear of persecution is complicated.
We usually try to get witnesses who can verify the child's history. We also present evidence of conditions in their country.
According to the Transactional Records Access Clearinghouse, 2 out of 3 minors go to the immigration courts without legal representation. Of those without attorneys, 9 out of 10 children are deported. In the case of Carlos Rodriguez and his fellow Salvadoran friend Diego Zamora, they are attending school while waiting for their immigration court hearing. But adjusting to a new life is not easy.
I had a teacher who was kind of a racist. He would get angry because I did not know English and I didn't know what to do.
Schools are affected by the influx of immigrant children. That is the case of the public schools in Montgomery County, Maryland, which are short of money to meet the needs of some 300 new arrivals, mostly from Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala.
When there is an increase in the number of students, you have to provide more teachers and more academic services, so it does affect the budget.
Even though Carlos and Diego go to school every day, and authorities know of their presence, their future depends on whether the immigration court grants them amnesty. For producer Angelica Herrera, I'm Brian Allen, VOA News, Washington.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, Ugandan gays hold a pride march at a secret location. Stay with us. Now to Uganda, where at a secret location on Saturday, a few hundred people walked in a gay pride march. For the many gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people, the pride event is a welcome break from a life in the closet. Uganda remains conservative when it comes to homosexuality. Sergino Rosblad tells us more.
We are family. That was the motto of the 4th annual Gay Pride Uganda. A year after the notorious Anti-Homosexuality Act was struck down, Uganda's gay community came together to celebrate their sexuality and diversity. For many participants, the Pride is one of the few events where they say they can totally be themselves.
Pride to me, it means freedom. I can come out this day and say that I'm proud of who I am. I'm gay and I'm proud of it.
The colorful parade, which was the pinnacle of Pride Week, attracted about 300 people and was held out of the public eye on the shores of Lake Victoria. In order to ensure people's safety and privacy, police and media cooperated with Pride organizers, which could be seen as a small positive change towards acceptance.
We involved the police, that is why the media has passes, so we know who is doing what, so that we don't have on Monday things going haywire for our community members.
Uganda's gay community has faced many hardships in recent years. In 2014, the law that imposed life in prison for so-called unnatural sexual acts was signed, followed by an international outcry. In the end, the law was repealed, but Ugandan society remains very conservative when it comes to same-sex relationships.
It doesn't mean that because the law was repealed or nullified that everything is okay. We still have the penal code to deal with, so there's a lot of work in the health ahead of us.
in housing, in employment, and even just families.
In order to continue the fight for the rights of gay people, a number of initiatives have been taken to sensitize the people of Uganda.
That's why we published the first LGBT magazine to bring a different narrative to the mainstream media.
Apart from the parade, other events including a Transgender Awareness Day were held during the 5-day event, which came to a close Sunday evening. Serginho Rosblad for VOA News, Entebbe, Uganda.
In many countries around the world, gay people are persecuted and even killed. But there's one city in the Middle East that has been openly courting gay business for years, resulting in the biggest pride celebration in the region. Here is Africa 54's Clara Frank.
On a hot June day in downtown Tel Aviv, everything is covered in rainbows. From storefronts to Israeli flags to every manner of clothing and accessory, the city has rolled out the multicolored red carpet for the 2015 Gay Pride celebration. Festivities kicked off here in Meir Park with happy crowds and a vibrant marketplace of all things rainbow. But not everyone was joining in the fun. This evangelical Christian was trying to save the day's participants from themselves.
It's written in the Bible, they're lost right now. They're lost in their sins, and the Lord is giving a chance to everybody.
Unfortunately for him, not many attendees were interested in his message. Like other Pride events around the world, drag queens served as MCs at the opening ceremonies. And with that spirited good morning, Tel Aviv Pride 2015 was officially underway. Following the performances, a cheerfully disorganized pride parade made its way towards the Mediterranean, with lots of crowd participation. Local media estimated that upwards of 180,000 people were in attendance. The parade also had a political element. There was an energetic delegation from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's conservative Likud party, and a very special appearance from a high-level American delegation.
Just look how hundreds of thousands of people are out to celebrate the LGBT community, out to show support, out to show how much we all believe in equality for everybody. And to make sure everybody knows how the United States feels about that, we decorated the American Embassy to show. So happy Pride, everybody!
And while many in the crowd celebrated love and acceptance, Evan Cohen, an emigre from South Africa and Likud supporter, explained why marriage equality in Israel will have to come about incrementally.
Because in Israel, we have a serious problem. We don't have civil marriage at all for anyone. So we have 1.5 million people who can't get married in Israel, regardless of their sexual orientation.
While marriage equality may seem far off for now, Israel recognizes same-sex marriages performed elsewhere, making it the first and only country in the region to do so. A 2013 public opinion poll by the newspaper Haaretz showed support for same-sex marriage at 59% among Israelis. Clara Frank, VOA News, Tel Aviv, Israel.
Not all gay pride events in Israel went as smoothly as the celebration in Tel Aviv. In Jerusalem last month, an Orthodox Jewish assailant killed one participant and wounded 5 in the annual Gay Pride March. The march, which attracts thousands, has long been a focus of tension between Israel's predominantly secular majority and the ultra-Orthodox Jewish minority who object to public displays of homosexuality. The alleged attacker, Yishai Slisol, was released from prison just weeks before the incident, after serving 10 years for stabbing marchers at a 2005 Gay Pride parade in Jerusalem. It's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, an African diaspora cultural festival to remember. We'll be right back. Welcome back. A Washington, D.C. suburb came alive with the sights and sounds of Africa at the 13th annual Fest Africa Cultural Festival. The event showcased a variety of African cultures. VOA's Paul Ndiho reports from Silver Spring, Maryland.
Hundreds of people were out on a warm summer day to enjoy a wide array of African culture. There were live performances, fashion, arts and crafts, a taste of African cuisine, and countless other activities.
The goal is really to showcase African heritage. So that includes from the continent, that includes Caribbean, that includes here in the United States, African American, and bringing us together to fuse that gap, uniting us and letting us share our cultures and learn about each other.
Several African flags represented the different Africans living in the United States at the fair. This year's theme was African health in the community. Francis Cole, a Sierra Leonean author living in Maryland, was among those honored for her role in the community.
The award I won is for distinguished author and community-based work that I do regarding female genital mutilation. As a survivor, I have a platform. I interview survivors of female genital mutilation, and they share their story, the exceptional story of survival to the world.
In an effort to promote African businesses in the Washington area, Veterans Plaza in downtown Silver Spring was turned into a replica of a busy city street in Africa. Karen Raphael is one of the vendors.
It's beautiful. I enjoy the weather, I enjoy the music. Everybody's so nice. I've been selling a lot, so that works.
William Macharia has been coming to Feast Africa for the last 10 years.
West Africa is always outstanding. All the 10 years I've done it, I always do marvelous. The crowd is amazing. We have good weather, great food, so we just love it.
Vendors were selling everything from original African clothing to handcrafted jewelry to artifacts. Nigerian-born Alfred is the owner of African Boutique.
I have different artwork from different countries. Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, Jamaica, Indonesia, everywhere in the world. Yeah.
Sophia Rogers makes colorful handcrafted jewelry.
The sales are definitely great. I definitely recommend any and all vendors to come test their products out here. It's definitely an opportunity I'm glad I took.
Event attendees thoroughly enjoy the sun, shopping, live performances, and a taste of African delicacies. Mwala Daka runs Lesos, a Maryland-based catering company.
Today we're featuring Kenyan coastal cuisine, which is samosas, chips masala, and mandazi.
The 13th annual Feast Africa was hosted by Afropolitan Youth Association, which has grown to become one of the largest U.S. African festivals. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, downtown Silver Spring in Maryland.
How about that celebration? Turning now to fashion, leading African designers recently showcased cutting-edge spring-summer collections at this year's Mercedes-Benz Cape Town Fashion Week. VOA's Caroline Turner has more.
Backstage at the Mercedes-Benz Cape Town Fashion Week, makeup artists and hairdressers are frantically getting all the models ready. This evening, fashion house La Lesso is among the designers presenting their Spring-Summer 2016 collections. With fluid lines and vibrant patterns, La Lesso's collections are inspired by the East Africa Conga cloth. Alice Hooser and Olivia Kenaway are the creators behind the luxurious brand. La Lesso is dedicated to protecting the environment and is one of the first completely carbon-zero fashion brands in the world.
So, La Lesso is inspired by the East African Kanga. That's how we started the label 8 years ago. And we now use that as a starting block each season with our prints and with the collection, trying to kind of contemporize the template, so to speak, of the East African Kanga. So that is our trademark.
Cape Town designer Michelle Ludick also wowed the audience with her distinctive pieces created for the modern, free-spirited woman.
Yeah, and every designer, we try to
to do the Western stuff, but we go back to Africa because the colors and the creativity, the beats and the flowers, the sunset, the sunrise, everything just inspires us. All the beautiful colors, yes.
Those who attended the shows were impressed by all they saw.
Wow, it was great. I liked the creamy, lacy one, the white. I think it's a sort of a wedding thing. I'm not sure if it's a wedding but it's a nice white lacy clothes, lacy designs. It's a bit so innovative. They're so innovative. I like them. I like it very much.
With multiple fashion shows, Cape Town Fashion Week attracts fashionistas and buyers from around the world. Organizers say it gives much-needed international exposure to local designers. Carolyn Turner, VOA News.
Welcome back. It's time for sports as Sonny Young is off today. In a major upset, Argentina beat South Africa Saturday at the close of this year's Rugby Championship in Durban. It was the Pumas' first victory over the Springboks in 20 attempts. South Africa is now last in the Southern Hemisphere tournament. The team from Australia went undefeated. The Springboks meet Argentina again next weekend in a World Cup warm-up game. And even though Sonny is not here, here's the sunny side of sports. A salute to top Kenyan athletes who completed an 840-kilometer walk for peace against ethnic violence Thursday. Former world record holder Wilson Kipsang took part in the 22-day trek. Community members in some of the hardest hit areas joined the walk as the athletes passed through. Organizers of the marathon walk raised over $90,000 to support peace-building efforts in the region. The United Nations say at least 310 Kenyans have been killed and over 215,000 forced from their homes this year in ethnic violence in northern Kenya. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC and to Daybreak Africa in the mornings between 300 and 600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks for watching and good night from Washington.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A bud is a young flower that has not yet opened. So, what do you think this American idiom means?
Nip it in the bud.
Listen to these friends talking.
My new neighbor is driving me crazy. She keeps coming over to my apartment uninvited. And then she will not leave.
Oh, you need to nip that in the bud. Just tell her to call before coming over. Or just don't answer the door.
If you nip it in the bud, you stop something from becoming a bigger problem. Nip means to cut. So if you cut a flower while it is still a bud, it cannot grow any bigger. When you nip something in the bud, you stop it from growing. And that's English in a Minute.